The year was 1943, and the winds of war swept across the Mediterranean like a relentless sirocco. The Allies, buoyed by their victories in North Africa, turned their gaze northward to Italy, the soft underbelly of Europe, as Winston Churchill had famously dubbed it. But what seemed like a vulnerable flank would soon reveal itself as a jagged spine of mountains, rivers, and fortified defenses, where every inch of ground exacted a toll in blood and resolve. At the heart of this brutal theater stood Monte Cassino, an ancient abbey perched atop a 1,700-foot peak, overlooking the Liri Valley and the vital Highway 6 leading to Rome. It was here that the Italian campaign would descend into chaos, a maelstrom of artillery fire, mud-choked trenches, and shattered illusions. The campaign began with promise. On July 10, 1943, Allied forces under General Dwight D. Eisenhower launched Operation Husky, the invasion of Sicily. American, British, and Canadian troops stormed the beaches, facing disorganized Italian resistance and pockets of German tenacity. Within weeks, Sicily fell, and Benito Mussolini's fascist regime crumbled. Italy's new government under Marshal Pietro Badoglio sued for peace, signing an armistice on September 3rd. But Adolf Hitler, ever the opportunist, had anticipated betrayal. He dispatched reinforcements to seize control, disarming Italian units and fortifying the peninsula. Enter Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, fresh from his North African defeats but undiminished in reputation. In August 1943, Hitler appointed Rommel to command Army Group B in northern Italy, tasking him with securing the region against Allied advances and potential Italian defection. Rommel, with his characteristic energy, toured the rugged terrain, assessing defenses. "The Italians are unreliable," he confided to his aide, "but the mountains are our allies." He advocated for a defensive line in the north, near the Alps, but Hitler favored Field Marshal Albert Kesselring's strategy of fighting further south to delay the Allies and protect Rome. As the Allies landed at Salerno on September 9th in Operation Avalanche, the stage was set for a grinding war of attrition. The U.S. Fifth Army under General Mark Clark and the British Eighth Army under General Bernard Montgomery pushed inland, but German resistance stiffened. Kesselring's forces, including elite paratroopers and panzer divisions, turned every village into a fortress. By October, the Allies reached the Volturno River, only to face the winter line, a series of fortifications stretching across the peninsula. Monte Cassino anchored the Gustav Line, the strongest segment of this barrier. The abbey, founded by Saint Benedict in 529 AD, was a symbol of Western civilization, its walls housing priceless manuscripts and artworks. The Germans, under orders from Kesselring, had pledged not to occupy it militarily, but they fortified the surrounding hills with machine gun nests, minefields, and artillery positions. From these vantage points, they commanded the valley below, turning any Allied advance into a slaughter. The first battle for Cassino erupted in January 1944. General Harold Alexander, overall commander of Allied forces in Italy, ordered an assault to breach the Gustav Line and open the road to Rome. The U.S. the Second Corps, including the 36th Texas Division, crossed the Rapido River under withering fire. "It was like walking into a meat grinder," one survivor recalled. The Texans suffered over 2,000 casualties in 48 hours, their bodies piling up in the icy waters. The attack faltered, exposing the futility of frontal assaults against entrenched positions. Churchill, pacing the war rooms in London, grew impatient. "We must break through," he wired Alexander. "Italy is the gateway to the Balkans and beyond, but the prime ministers, Vision of a swift campaign clashed with reality. Rain turned the valleys into quagmires, supply lines stretched thin, and disease ravaged the troops. Dysentery and trench foot became as deadly as German bullets. The second battle began on February 15th, amid controversy. Allied intelligence, misinterpreted by some, suggested Germans were using the abbey as an observation post. Despite Vatican protests and assurances from German commanders that the monastery was unoccupied by troops, though refugees sheltered there, Alexander authorized its bombing. Over 200 B-17 Flying Fortresses and B-25 Mitchells unleashed 1,400 tons of explosives. The abbey crumbled in a cloud of dust and rubble, its ancient frescoes pulverized. A tragic necessity, Clark later justified, but the destruction outraged the world. Propaganda leaflets from the Germans decried the barbarism of the Allies, while neutral observers lamented the loss of cultural heritage. Ironically, the bombing backfired. The ruins provided perfect cover for German paratroopers of the 1st Fallschirmjäger Division, who moved in after the attack. "The abbey is now a fortress," reported a German officer. The New Zealand Corps, led by General Bernard Freyberg, launched the ground assault. Indian Gurkhas and New Zealanders scaled the slopes under cover of night, their kukris glinting in the moonlight. Fierce hand-to-hand combat ensued amid the debris. "We fought like demons," a Gurkha sergeant remembered, "but the Germans were dug in like ticks." Casualties mounted. The New Zealanders lost over 3,000 men, their artillery barrage codenamed Bradman, after the cricket legend failing to dislodge the defenders. Moroccan Goumiers from the French Expeditionary Corps joined the fray, their ferocity in mountain warfare earning respect and fear. Yet the line held. By February 18th, the attack was called off, leaving the Gustave Line intact. Rommel, though transferred to France in November 1943 to prepare for the expected Normandy invasion, cast a long shadow over the campaign. His earlier inspections had influenced Kasserine's defenses, emphasizing mobility and counterattacks. Rumors persisted of Rommel's ghost divisions, phantom units that seemed to appear and vanish, sowing confusion. In reality, Kasserine masterminded the resistance, but Allied troops whispered of the Desert Fox's cunning, attributing every setback to his legendary tactics. As winter dragged into spring, the third battle loomed. Alexander regrouped, bringing in fresh divisions. The U.S. 34th Infantry Division assaulted the town of Cassino itself, street by street. Bombers returned, reducing the town to rubble. "It looked like the end of the world," a GI described. Snipers picked off advancing soldiers, and booby traps claimed more lives. The fighting devolved into a World War I-style stalemate, with trenches and barbed wire entangling the landscape. Churchill's frustration boiled over in private cables. "Why are we bogged down?" he demanded of his chiefs of staff. The campaign, meant to divert German resources from the Eastern Front and prepare for overlord, was consuming Allied strength. Over 20 German divisions were tied up in Italy, but at what cost? Morale plummeted as soldiers endured the D-Dodgers moniker, a sarcastic jab from those awaiting the real invasion in France. The chaos at Monte Cassino peaked in March. A massive artillery bombardment over 195,000 shells preceded the New Zealand Corps' renewed push. But a miscommunication led to bombers dropping short, killing Allied troops. The rubble-choked streets hindered tanks, and German counterattacks reclaimed lost ground. Freyberg, a Victoria Cross winner from World War I, pressed on, but the toll was horrific. By mid-March, the third battle ended in failure, with 15,000 Allied casualties. Amid the carnage, stories of heroism emerged. Polish troops under General Władysław Anders, exiles from Soviet gulags, prepared for the final assault. Their determination symbolized the broader struggle against tyranny. Indian soldiers from the 4th Division charged up Snake's Head Ridge, facing enfilading fire. "We climbed over our dead," one sepoy wrote home. The abbey ruins became a symbol of the war's absurdity, destroyed to save it, now a bastion of death. Vatican envoys negotiated evacuations, but the fighting continued. German propaganda broadcast tales of Allied vandals, while BBC reports highlighted the strategic necessity. As April dawned, Alexander planned the fourth and final battle, Operation Diadem. 11 divisions from 8 nations, American, British, Canadian, French, Indian, New Zealand, Polish, and South African, would attack simultaneously. The French corps, with Algerian and Moroccan units, exploited an impassable sector, outflanking the Germans. The Poles stormed the Abbey Heights, singing their anthem amid the barrage. On May 18, 1944, after days of savage combat, Polish soldiers raised their flag over the ruins. The Gustav Line was broken, but at a staggering cost. Over 55,000 Allied casualties across the 4 battles, against 20,000 German. The road to Rome lay open, but the chaos of Monte Cassino had exposed the Italian campaign's harsh truth. It was no soft underbelly, but a quagmire of mountains and martyrdom. Rommel, from his post in France, received reports of the fall. Kasserine held longer than expected, he noted in his diary, unaware that his own evasion tactics would soon enter the legend. The stage was set for the Fox's next move, as the Allies pressed north, chasing shadows in the Apennines. With Monte Cassino in ruins and the Gustav Line shattered, the Allies surged forward in May 1944. Rome fell on June 4th, just days before D-Day in Normandy, marking the first Axis capital liberated. But the victory was bittersweet. German forces under Kasserine retreated in good order, reforming on the Gothic line further north. The Italian campaign, far from over, would drag on for another year. It was in this phase that Erwin Rommel's shadow loomed large again, or so the myths would claim. Though officially in France, fictional accounts and post-war lore wove tales of his secret involvement, evading Allied traps with the cunning that had earned him fame in the desert. In our narrative, let's imagine an alternate thread where Rommel, disillusioned with Hitler's orders, covertly advised Kasserine on mobile defenses. After his transfer, Rommel had argued for elastic tactics, hit-and-run counterattacks rather than static lines. "The enemy must be kept off balance," he wrote in a memo smuggled south. Kasserine, adapting these ideas, orchestrated a series of evasions that frustrated Allied pursuit. As the U.S. Fifth Army advanced up the Liri Valley, they encountered what became known as Rommel's Ghosts, small, agile panzer units that ambushed convoys and vanished into the hills. At Valmonton, Clark's forces aimed to encircle the German 10th Army, but a daring withdrawal allowed escape. "It was as if the Fox himself directed them," grumbled an American colonel. In truth, it was Kesserine's doing, but Rommel's reputation amplified the legend. Churchill, monitoring from London, seethed. The Prime Minister had staked much on Italy diverting resources from Overlord, convincing Roosevelt of its value. Now, with Rome taken but the Germans slipping away, his frustration mounted. "We have them in a trap, yet they evade like foxes," he thundered in a war cabinet meeting on June 10th. Cables flew to Alexander. "Pursue relentlessly. Cut off their retreat." The evasion unfolded in the Trasimene line, a temporary barrier north of Rome. German engineers mined roads, demolished bridges, and set ambushes. Allied armor, bogged down by terrain, couldn't capitalize on air superiority. French colonial troops, fresh from casino triumphs, pushed hard, but sniper fire and booby traps slowed them. "Every olive grove hides a trap," reported a Moroccan officer. Rommel, in this fictional extension, made a clandestine visit to Italy in late June, disguised as a staff officer. Hitler, paranoid after the July 20th assassination attempt, in which Rommel was implicated but survived temporarily, allowed it to test loyalties. Rommel met Kasserine near Lake Trasimene, surveying the lines. "Withdraw to the Arno, preserve your strength," Rommel urged. "Let the Allies overextend." The plan worked. As Montgomery's Eighth Army advanced along the Adriatic, Germans feigned collapse, luring them into kill zones. At Perugia, a counterattack by the Hermann Göring Division mauled British tanks. Rommel's handiwork, the press speculated, fueling Churchill's ire. By July, the Allies reached Florence. But the Gothic line, fortified with concrete bunkers and anti-tank ditches, halted them. Rommel's evasion tactics had bought time, allowing 23 German divisions to regroup. Casualties were light compared to Cassino. The Germans lost equipment but saved manpower. Churchill's rant came to a head in August. In a stormy session with his chiefs, Alan Brooke, Anthony Eden, and others, he paced, cigar in hand. "Rommel, that damned desert fox, slips through our fingers again. We had him trapped in Italy, his forces cornered like rats in a barrel, yet he dances away. What sorcery is this?" Brooke noted in his diary, PM in fine form railing against Rommel's evasion. "He forgets the man is in France." But the myth persists. Churchill West's words echoed his 1942 House of Commons speech. "We have a very daring and skillful opponent against us, and may I say across the havoc of war, a great general. But now, twisted by frustration, Rommel evades our traps in Italy, mocking our efforts. We bomb their abbeys, flood their valleys, yet the fox runs free. If we cannot crush him here, what hope in France?" The Prime Minister wired Roosevelt, "The Italian quagmire deepens. Rommel's shadow lengthens. His evasions cost us dearly." Publicly, Churchill maintained optimism, but privately, he lamented the campaign's toll over 300,000 Allied casualties by war's end. Rommel's actual fate intervened. Wounded in a strafing attack on July 17, 1944, he was implicated in the Valkyrie plot and forced to suicide on October 14. But in our story, his Italian evasion lives on, a testament to tactical brilliance. The campaign ground on. In September, Operation Olive assaulted the Gothic line, with Poles and Greeks joining the fray. Rimini fell after bitter fighting, but winter stalled advances. Kesselsring's forces, inspired by Rommel's doctrines, held until spring 1945. Churchill's rant symbolized the war's ironies, admiration for a foe amid hatred. "Damn Rommel," he muttered, "but what a soldier!" The Italian traps from Cassino to the Alps claimed lives but forged victory, one evasion at a time.